Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video. In a recent interview by Sandy Monroe with Lars Moravy, the Tesla's head of vehicle engineering, we got a lot of really great information, and I would highly recommend you take a look at the main video. The link is here on the screen and in the video description. But based on that, we got some great news and information that pertains to Giga-Texas, specifically about these four areas. The first is the casting machine area, the second is the die shop facility, and now we know what that is for. The stamping and also Cybertruck painting system areas on the southeast side of the main factory, and also about the crash testing. For today, we'll be concentrating on the die shop facility and some of the new information that we've obtained from Lars during that interview, and the biggest one of which is finally answering the question, what is this facility for?
It's always...
So maintaining, I would have thought, well, it depends on, I don't know enough about this aluminum to really, I mean, we did an analysis on it, but...
then we have our own in-house die shop. So if that area is getting weak, we'll just replace it with a different insert.
A new
and then the platen is really what lasts you know, hundreds of thousands of shots.
Right.
And you know, we may be maintaining the inserts, you know, every couple months, every 6 months, but you know, we are making a lot of dies, which is why we made our own die shop.
So as you could hear from Lars, they built this die shop specifically on site to give them an in-house capability to make, modify, and design, and also test the dies that are used for the casting machine. And he didn't specifically say, but it's possible they will do the same for the stamping machines as well. Although I think that they have the machine shops down in the stamping 1 and 2 sections for that. But nevertheless, we now know definitively what this facility is for, and it explains some of the structures that we saw during the construction. If we go back to this image from the 6th of February 2023, during the construction of the die shop, many of the features of the building now make a lot more sense. We can see on the west side those double columns holding up bridge crane rails, and then later on we saw some heavy-duty bridge cranes installed. We know that that's going to be used to move the dies around during modification, maintenance, and also design and testing. On the ground on the left-hand side, we can see these two areas in the dotted lines. These had continuous flight auger piers installed, which are very strong, in addition to geo-piers. The one on the left is actually deeper foundation as well, and I wasn't really sure what those were for. Later on in November, we see in that blue highlighted area, more of the ground slab has been sectioned and removed, probably to add additional capability to the die shop. In this image on the 24th of February, just about 3 weeks later, we can see the development of that deep, heavily reinforced foundation on the left and the other foundation that has the CFA piles on the right. And these are slightly different in construction, but they both will be holding some pretty heavy machinery. And finally, from this image on the 11th of December 2023, we see that furnace with the covering. And I was never really sure what this was for. Now, this was installed on the north end of the building, very close to that deep foundation that we discussed. And now that we know that this die shop is going to be used to modify, do maintenance, design, and testing of the dies for the casting machines, this makes a lot more sense and why they need this particular capability at this shop. Now, some people may ask, what about the stamping machine dies? I believe that the in-house capability to do the modification and maintenance of those dies is already built in the stamping 1 and 2 facilities on the southeast side, so those are not needed for this particular facility. So there you have it, a good review of information we got during the Sandy Monroe interview with Lars about the die shop. What is it for? How does it operate? And also helps put to bed a lot of questions I personally had and my viewers have had about what this facility is for. I hope that you found this review and information helpful and put into context what we've been seeing around this site. So now let's get into the drone, let's fly around and see what Giga-Texas looks like today. If you would like to support my efforts, please consider using these links, which will be in the video description. If you are interested in Tesla products, you can help yourself and support me by using my referral code. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons on my YouTube video, as this helps as well. Thank you. My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Well, today we're starting off on the southeast side near the multi-level parking garage construction site. The weather is perfect. No rain, which is a great change from last week. And as you can tell, visibility is excellent. Now at the bottom of the screen, we see more work being done on top of those underground steel corrugated pipe manifold system. Also preparation work for the road that will go through this area at some point in the near future. We also see on the east side gravel being delivered right now. This is a great sign because this will be spread on top of the site as they continue to develop the footings and the rest of this area for construction. More of the double T and other concrete panels on the right have been delivered. And I'm going to zoom in here. You see these stack of mesh type items. This is going to be applied on top of the double T's of the parking garage, and then they will pour more concrete on top, and that will both seal and make that structure much more solid when it is completed. Now here's a good zoom in of the work on the east side footings, or at least in the center section. You can see the kind of like two roadways and that red truck driving on it. I believe that that is in preparation for the cranes, and they will be going through those sections and assembling more of the parking garage. We can see another wall panel, or at least a double T panel on the bottom right, getting ready for installation. There's actually one being installed right now, and I'll give you some views of that shortly. We also see some more of these wall panels with look like kind of windows with those bars in them. This is the section that has the ramps that go up or down for the vehicles to go to different levels. As I mentioned, here's a double T panel that's being lifted and positioned by this crane, and also some of the workers. So let's watch how this takes place. I'll zoom in so you get a much better view. Take a look at the workers also, just to get a sense of scale for how large this portion of the multi-level parking garage is right now. Quite a bit of progress on that parking garage. We also use the zoom here to give you a good view of the east side of the stamping machine section. A lot of the materials, again, you can see some of the stamping machines through the windows because of the lighting, and also the concrete slab that has been poured in this kind of triangular section on the southeast corner. You can also see that perimeter grade beam around that particular area. The steel structure continues to have more steel installed. Also, we see a large section of concrete has now been poured on the floor decking of the second floor, and it actually just completed just before I started the flight. And you'll see some of those riding trowels on the concrete to complete the smoothing out of it for the floor. You can see some of the workers standing on the original section that had the concrete poured a while ago. Here's a really good view of the steel structure as it's continuing to expand to the west. And as I bring the drone down lower, I'll give you a good zoom in. You can get a good sense of that work that we talked about for all this concrete. There's another section with rebar and forms waiting for concrete to finish out that particular section. Here we see another portion of the steel structure with some of the floor decking. Also, one of the columns was put in at the wrong height on my previous video. That has now been corrected, and they're now continuing to expand that steel structure to the west. The perimeter grade beam on the kind of middle of the screen with some of those yellow forms continues to take shape. And looking at the workers, you get a good sense of how tall this is in relation to the ground. Also, the column mounts in concrete. And all of this is raised up about 2 meters off of the ground level. And there's a lot of people asking why that is. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is to ensure that the grade eventually is level with the existing factory on the left-hand side of the screen as this slopes slightly to the south. and this will correct all of that once it is completed. You see a lot more of the steel being arranged here, waiting for the crane to pick it up, more of the columns being installed. And then here on the south side, you just saw a Cybertruck driving into the end-of-line door on the right. We also see, I believe, 19 of the Cybertrucks here. Now, interestingly enough, shortly after I did these shots, when I came back to take a few more photos, almost all of these Cybertrucks were gone. They had been relocated to somewhere else on the site. And most of these look like they have Moroni stickers on the dashboard, and they look like they may be for customers, which is great to see. People keep asking me what is the production rate of the Cybertrucks. I don't know. This is Monday morning, so it's not the best time to get an assessment because the production lines are coming back online after the weekend. We see two more of the Cybertrucks on the right. Those have covers on them, and they're also doing more of the footing excavation around that section. So interesting that they're leaving them there. It's a good view of the angled perimeter grade beam. A lot of the concrete has been poured, and now they are putting the forms and getting ready to pour more of those raised footings for the column bases. Now, as we fly over the Cyberpond towards this southwest corner, I wanted to show you the progress on the Gigawater Loop extension here on this section. You can see that trench box crews are working down in the middle there. Also looks like HDPE pipes have been fuse welded, and that will allow them to connect this section up. Also, we see that white kind of crane-like structure holding up that pole since the guy wires have been removed. Now, as I turn towards the west side along the highway where the arrow is, you see this black smoke. I knew people were going to ask, so I thought I would point it out. This was actually an ICE car fire that was on the side of the road, unrelated to Giga-Texas, but they had a lot of fire and rescue out there to put out that flame. And again, you can see all of that smoke that's going across the highway. So anyway, that's what that is. Hopefully the new owner, will be a new owner of Tesla someday, so they won't have car fires like they do with the gas cars. Now, on the west side, we'll continue to fly over River Road, and I'll fly up over the parking lot, get a good zoom in. You can see the work that's being done in the far southwest. They are arranging some of those parking markers, so it looks like that is, at least in the short term, destined to be another large parking lot. And this section continues to have more of the earthwork as well. Also a nice view of the downtown of the city of Austin in the background. As I get closer here to the material staging, one of the things that stood out to me next to these windows is you'll see 48 superchargers have now been assembled. Some of these were unassembled before, and it looks like they have put them all together or are finishing up putting them together. You see a few workers there. And all of this, plus a lot more, are going to be installed on the south end of the end of line on that covered supercharger section. Again, I think it's going to be about 96 superchargers once that is completed. I also noticed here these blue covered items next to this crane. Looks like more of them have been delivered, and the speculation is that these may be smaller stamping presses, but it's really hard to say for sure. Now, that crane was just about to be moved, and it's going to come over and move some of the modular HVAC systems on the south side, and they'll be installed on the west side of the end-of-line facility here later today. The paving work hasn't really changed a whole lot, although the crews are continuing to finish up the trenching for some of the lighting system. And then on this edge of the site, we can see the trench work for conduit on the right, and we can see those sections of boring company tunnel sections sitting here with the red markings. That does not seem to have changed much, and these are those sections of those prefabricated HVAC units that I saw as I was leaving that crane, picking them up to move to the west side of the end of line. Now, the work here to prepare the conduits, the electrical, and the bases for the columns for that covered supercharger system is continuing to develop. And then on the east side of the end of line, we see continued trenching with a variety of different kinds of pipes, also different sizes of pipes being put in here on this side, completing most of the work that's necessary for plumbing and water, and also the electricity on this side. As we get up towards the northeast corner, you can see that the red concrete has been poured on top of the conduits. They're now filling in those trenches, and it looks like that portion of that work is coming closer to an end. We can see where that ends up in these concrete vaults and all of the various conduit pipes that are coming in and out of these, and also on the left was that HDPE pipe that goes over to the main factory to connect the power. As we continue to fly over these temporary power poles onto the west side, I wanted to give you a good view of the trench work that is underway. We see some concrete pour now being done at the base of the building on the left-hand side, and most of the trench work looks like it's being filled in now. We also see these concrete pads also work on those ducts for the HVAC, and this is where those units of the HVAC that are going to be picked up on the south end are going to be moved. So next time I get here, I expect to see those installed on this side. As I mentioned, there's more trenching that is going on here on the north side of the outbound lot. This is all for the lighting that will be in this entire section, and then once completed, the entire outbound lot will be well lit. I did notice on this kind of left-hand side of the road more trench work. It looks like more of the pipes. I think it's blue pipe for water that's being installed along this side of the road, and you can get a good sense of how this north-south road is continuing to develop. More of the grade work here in this section, which is filling in this entire area, possibly for more construction, and it'll be again something I'll watch, and I'll be monitoring the permits to see if there's anything that pops up from the city of Austin. This material staging location with the two tents continues to be very busy with a lot of materials, the offices and some of the containers with more equipment. Also here in the middle of the screen, you can see where the road work has been defined but is not completed, and they still need to move a lot of these power poles out of the way for them to complete the road. On the left-hand side of the screen, we see more of the steel items stored here, and it looks like there's a new small white trailer that replaced a welding shop that was there for several months but was removed a couple of months ago. So it looks like more activity coming here. We also see a lot more of the steel continue to be arrayed here, some of which is going to the south end, and some of it may be destined for other parts of the site. As we cross over Tesla Road, we can see that it has been paved now towards that intersection with Farm to Market 973. So this is definitely coming along. And in the upper left of the screen, we can see kind of that dirt section where is still Tesla property, and that's where a lot of the dirt's being picked up and moved to the southwest corner for that area that's being graded that I showed you, which looks like a new parking lot going in as well. So let's take a look back at the main factory across State Highway 130, and this is how it looks from this vantage point today. And we're going to cross over the highway and we'll resume the flight on this side of the highway. And because of the sun, I'm going to turn around quickly and give you a good view of the Megapack site, where there are some interesting developments today. This white truck and the red Model Y is great to see, because this is some of the Tesla employees that are responsible for the electrical system here. I think they're really close to having the Megapacks ready to be commissioned and connected to the grid. In fact, here we see some crew working near the breaker bars. The breaker bars are still open right now, which means it's not connected, and I'll zoom in so you can get a good sense of what that looks like. And you can see those breaker bars are open on the left, but it looks like they're doing final preparation work here on the north end so that they can actually swing those to the closed position. And once that is the case, then the Megapack will be connected to the grid, which will be another major milestone for Giga-Texas. So I think we are very close. It could be later today. As we fly up over the power lines, I'll give you a good view back towards the Megapack site. You can get a good sense of its nearly completed look with all of the perimeter fencing, the gravel, all of the connections, and it really looks close to that commissioning. On this side of the electrical switchyard. You can see that the crews are still working on some wiring with those near those concrete vaults and those 2 white trailers. Still some scaffolding on that section of underground vault as well without any of the machinery. And I'm still looking for that large delivery that was here on my previous video, but I don't see it right now, so it's obviously been moved somewhere else. So I was expecting to be on that vault section, but it obviously is not right now. So let's fly back towards the main factory where there's some developments that I want to show you today. Here's a big change I noticed at the 4680 battery cell production section of the factory. With the arrow, you can now see that more of the concrete wall panels have been removed. This is a image from my previous video on the 15th of December. You can see those wall panels and those 2 receiving doors were present. Those have now been removed. Just inside here, a second floor mezzanine was constructed with steel beams. They've had rebar work and they're almost ready for the concrete to be poured. This is an image from today, a little bit better vantage point. Get a good view inside. You can definitely tell that those wall panels and the receiving doors have been removed. And you can see that mezzanine ready for the concrete. So they continue to do a lot of the changes, installation of equipment, and preparation for this section to be expanded to those 8 4680 cell production areas and should be completed sometime towards the latter half of this year for the production, as what I understand from what Drew Baglino said in a recent interview during the third quarter financial results meeting. This is a good view of the northeast corner, showing all the stain work on the walls completed up until that one section on the left. On the bottom, we can also see the work continuing to expand that new walkway across the road and then through the trees on the left-hand side of the screen. And as we get closer, you can see the knockout crews are putting more of the plastic on the windows and some of the grates in preparation to complete this last section. It's just 4 of these concrete sections wide. Once this is complete, they will have completed their initial work in getting the stain applied to the entire building, at least the building as it is right now, and we'll have to see if they work on the extension once that is completed. The work on the roof here for the ventilation system continues, and you can get a good sense of how those enclosures are continuing to be built from the north to the south. There are several more of those ducted fans, so a lot more work remains until this system is completed. The flue on the center left of the screen looks like it's fairly completed up to this point in time, but on the ground next to the man lift where you see the knockout crews putting the plastic, there's a kind of a manifold on the ground that will be mounted on top of the new furnaces, and I think that opening will go up through that flue that you can see on the top of the screen. This is also a good view of some of the work here on the east side of the casting machine structure, some of the castings themselves, some in racks, some are on the ground, and then the excavation work to continue to widen the berm on the bottom of the screen. We also see what looks to be more trenching for additional conduit and some of those spools on those orange holders. Again, this is where the electricity goes from the electrical switchyard to the main factory and where it enters in under the perimeter grade beam. The work continues here to prepare this section for concrete installation. You can see some of the ground has been graded and there's still some work with some concrete vaults nearby some of those receiving doors. And this other section that also needs concrete work to complete near the secondary main entrance. So I'm going to pull away and take a look at the outbound lot, and we'll take a look at what is going on here when it comes to production of both the Model Ys and the Cybertrucks. Now, this is a Monday morning, which means that yesterday there wasn't any production, so they're ginning up the lines as I was here. So a lot of the vehicles have been transported off-site during the weekend, and that's why it looks kind of few vehicles here, but production is ramping back up, so we should see a lot more of both the Cybertrucks and Model Ys later today. Speaking of which, there are 9 model Cybertrucks here, and it looks like all of these have the white interior, as you can see by the door panels. And some of them have the Moroni stickers on the dashboard as well. So all of these are customer vehicles, newly produced. And as I mentioned, several trucks took Cybertrucks off-site today, or this weekend. I've even heard of deliveries happening in Austin. So more vehicles are going to Cybertruck customers, which is great to see. And it looks like more of them are waiting here for their opportunity to move off-site and be delivered to customers as well. So hopefully later today or this week, we'll see a lot more of the Cybertrucks being produced, and we'll start getting a better sense for the production rate then. As we get over to the testing and calibration line, as I mentioned, a lot of the Model Ys are gone because they've been shipped off-site during the weekday or weekend. Since it's a weekday now, the production has continued or is resuming, so we should see a lot more of them showing up here and in the outbound lot soon. As I pull away, you'll see the helicopter pad and 4 Cybertrucks. I think those are just the release candidates used here on site, and the wind tunnel on the right and the Rainmaker on the left. It looks like the Rainmaker is being used right now for a vehicle. It looks like a Model Y, and that's done for testing of the water proofness, and it's sort of a quality check. So as I turn around over the construction site of the parking garage, I wanted to show you this new intersection, and we're just flying over it right now. You can see the East Warehouse on Wheels. And what I have been told is with some of this road work and also the warehouse on wheels and some of the other areas that we can see having the grade work, is all of this is going to most likely be paved here in the coming few weeks. And so it'll be something to watch and see if they do pave it, what the configuration will look like when they are completed. And as I mentioned, there's that other section that has had some very recent grade work done, and I'll pull back just to give you a good view. And it's possible this will all be connected, part of the roads and the pave work, and we'll again see what that looks like when we're completed. So let's get closer towards the battery cathode plant, and let's take a look at the activity that's going on this side of the site today. Continuing that trend of clearing out the east side today, less and less materials. We do see some work and some vehicles near the crash testing facility, and also the work here on the water detention pond with that filtration system. It looks like there's some pipes that are being used to pump out some of the water. And then here we see work on the outfall channel, which is the primary drain of that pond, and it will be draining off here to the east side. And as we get a little bit closer, you can see all of the water that is standing here. Again, it's being pumped out of the system, and they are also finishing up some of that work on that filtration system at the bottom with those pipes sticking up. And also we can get a good view of the wade pit on the left and the infall channel with the concrete on the right. The paving around the cell test lab and the vehicles looks like it's still being pretty busy in that smaller structure. And then on the northeast side, this gives a good view of the sort of the dirt that's being cleaned up, some of the debris. We see that pipe on the right. That's part of the old bag plant exhaust pipe, and that's where the electrical switch yard is constructed now. That pipe was been used as a drainage tunnel under a temporary road, and now it's sitting over here waiting for recycling. This is a good view of the kind of shrinking material staging and some of the workshops here on the northeast side, which is, I think, another great positive sign. And then as we pass over the lift station, those concrete sections in the ground, we can get a good view of the paved section, the drainage system in the concrete on the left-hand side. And it looks like 2 of these trees are being kept for to be here forever, which is great. So those are being saved. And then as we zoom in here at the chiller plant, this gives you a good view of the activity that is going on here. The conduit that goes between the chiller plant and the die shop is almost completed. And as we talked about in my previous video, I expected to see concrete being poured here, and we see that happening. Also, you can see that drainage system near where the workers are standing in the middle, and that goes to that underground draining system. And then those concrete vaults with the manhole covers are for some of the electrical conduit. Repositioning the drone, this gives you a good view of Giga-Texas across the overflow lot and the east parking lot. And I want to bring the drone down in and give a good view inside the south end of the cathode plant. This is where the pneumatic blenders have been installed on the left. Looks like most of the railing system and platforms on the top have been connected, plus some of the manifolds. We see what looks to be some of the wooden crates with deliveries, more equipment, and still on the right-hand side, not a lot of development inside that section of the building. As we continue to fly towards the die shop, which we talked about in the intro of the video, now we have a pretty good idea of what this is for, thanks to Lars Moravy's discussion. And looks like they continue to do work here on this west side. This is where we've seen in the past the cut up concrete sections of the slab, and we know that they're doing some expansion on the inside of that door we just passed. This is a good view of the west side, just how it is getting more and more of the equipment removed. Everything is being rearranged, and I think they're preparing this for grade work and then paving at some point in the near future. A lot of that is convenience, but it also helps mitigate all of the water that has standed in this area and has been difficult for the workers. So there you have it, a good view across a lot of Giga-Texas today. We covered a lot of ground, and I hope that you enjoyed what we were able to see and what we were able to talk about throughout the video today. As always, thank you very much for watching and for your great support. I very much appreciate it. I hope you have a great rest of this week. Take care.